In the heat of combat, one man ran toward the fire without a rifle, armed only with 2 canvas bags. To the wounded, he was Doc, the only thing standing between them and a cold grave. But what exactly was inside those pouches that allowed a single soldier to save dozens of lives under mortar fire? Today, we are deconstructing the complete, historically accurate loadout of the World War II U.S. Army medic. First, we look at the iconic steel pot, often hand-painted with 4 red crosses on a white circular field. While some medics feared these markings made them targets for snipers, they were legally protected under international law. In the European theater, the size and style of these crosses varied wildly by unit, often applied with whatever paint was available. Interestingly, many medics removed the internal liner to use the steel shell as a wash basin or even a cooking pot. This helmet remained a psychological beacon of hope for wounded men pinned down in no man's land. It was the medic's most vital piece of personal protection while kneeling over casualties in the open. Next is the white cloth armband featuring a bold red cross, strictly worn on the left arm. This was the medic's official shield, designating them as a non-combatant protected by the 1929 Geneva Convention. If captured, this brassard ensured the medic was treated as a medical officer rather than a standard prisoner of war. In the chaos of the front lines, many medics smudged these with dirt to avoid attracting enemy fire. It was typically secured with safety pins or sewn directly onto the M1941 field jacket. This simple piece of cloth was the only thing theoretically stopping an enemy soldier from pulling the trigger. Continuing with the paperwork, every medic carried the crucial Form 1 SETI SEV ID card in their breast pocket. This document carried the soldier's serial number and a statement in multiple languages confirming their protected medical status. If the brassard was lost, this card was the final proof needed to avoid being executed as a combatant. It was often kept in a waterproof carrier to survive the damp conditions of the foxholes. Medics were instructed to produce this card immediately upon surrender to medicalize their status. It remains one of the rarest paper ephemera items for modern collectors today. Medical suspenders. Let's look at the specialized yoke system, designed to distribute a massive amount of weight across the shoulders. Unlike standard infantry suspenders, these featured extra padding and specific cantle rings for mounting heavy medical bags. They were designed to sit high on the chest to prevent the pouches from swinging while the medic was crawling. The suspenders were reinforced with heavy-duty stitching to withstand a load of over 30 pounds. Without this ergonomic system, the medic's mobility, his greatest asset, would be severely compromised. They were often adjusted tightly to ensure the gear didn't snag on debris during a rescue. Moving to the heart of the kit, we find the twin M1924 canvas pouches worn on each hip. These bags were specifically compartmentalized to hold various bandages, instruments, and drugs for rapid access. The left pouch typically held dry supplies, while the right pouch contained specialized tools and narcotics. They featured quick-release lift-the-dot fasteners, so a medic could open them with one hand in seconds. Because they lacked a flap-over design, they were notorious for letting in rain, forcing medics to wrap supplies in wax paper. These pouches are the most recognizable symbol of the doc on the battlefield. M1910 Canteens. Next, we notice the medic carried multiple canteens, often 2 or even 4, mounted on their belt. While a regular soldier carried one for hydration, a medic's water supply was primarily for patient care. Water was essential for administering sulfa drugs, cleaning debris from wounds, and treating traumatic shock. These aluminum or steel flasks were housed in felt-lined canvas covers that kept the water cool. In winter, medics would often keep a canteen inside their jacket to prevent the water from freezing. A medic running out of water often meant the difference between a soldier surviving or succumbing to shock. Let's start with the most common item, the Carlisle bandage, housed in a distinctive olive drab tin. Every infantryman carried one, but a medic carried dozens, stuffed into every available pocket. These were large, sterile gauze pads with long tails for wrapping tightly around a limb. Early versions were packed in copper or brass tins, while later versions moved to waxed cardboard to save metal. They usually included a small packet of sulfanilamide powder inside the packaging. This was the primary tool used to plug bullet holes and shrapnel wounds instantly. Morphine tartrate syrettes. Continuing with the most critical drug, these were small collapsible metal tubes filled with a half grain of morphine. Each syrette came with a pre-attached needle protected by a transparent hood and a wire stylet to puncture the seal. Medics administered these directly into the arm or thigh of a soldier in extreme pain. Once used, the medic would pin the empty syrette to the soldier's collar to alert doctors of the dosage. This prevented a double dose, which could lead to fatal respiratory depression at the next medical station. This was the magic wand that kept wounded men calm enough for evacuation. Next is the wonder drug of World War II, a white antibiotic powder used to fight infection before it started. Medics were trained to rip open these small foil packets and pour the powder directly into open wounds. Before the mass production of penicillin, this sulfa powder was the only defense against gangrene. It worked by inhibiting the growth of bacteria, buying the soldier precious time during evacuation. Each medic carried dozens of these packets, as infection was often as deadly as the initial bullet. It revolutionized battlefield medicine and significantly lowered the mortality rate from limb wounds. Triangular bandages. Following the powders, we have the versatile triangular bandage, a simple piece of unbleached muslin cloth. These were the Swiss Army knife of bandages, capable of being folded into a sling, a cravat, or a pressure dressing. Because of their large surface area, they were also used to secure splints to broken limbs. They were individually compressed into small paper squares to save space in the medical pouches. Every medic was taught dozens of different knots to make this single cloth fit any body part. It remains a staple of first aid kits today due to its sheer simplicity and effectiveness. Web tourniquets. Continuing with life-saving hardware, the medic carried specialized canvas tourniquets with metal friction buckles. These were used as a last resort to stop catastrophic arterial bleeding that a standard bandage couldn't handle. While modern medicine is cautious with them, in World War II they were essential for traumatic amputations. Medics were instructed to write a T on the soldier's forehead with a grease pencil when a tourniquet was applied. This warned surgeons that the blood flow to the limb was completely cut off. Thousands of men came home alive because of this simple strip of webbing and metal. Next are the iodine applicators, which were small glass ampoules encased in a protective cotton tip tube. To use one, the medic would simply snap the glass inside the tube, allowing the iodine to soak the tip. This provided a sterile, one-time use applicator for cleaning around the edges of a wound. Iodine was effective but notoriously painful, leading to the famous medic's sting that soldiers dreaded. They were carried in small boxes of 10 and were vital for preventing minor scratches from turning into infections. It was the first line of defense in basic battlefield sanitation and wound care. Burn ointment. Let's look at the specialized tubes of boric acid or petrolatum-based ointment carried for thermal injuries. Burns were exceptionally common among tank crews, airmen, and soldiers targeted by flamethrowers. The ointment was designed to coat the burn, keeping air out and reducing the agonizing pain of exposed nerves. It also prevented the dressing from sticking to the damaged skin, which would cause trauma during removal. Medics often carried several large tubes because a single burn victim could require an entire tube. This was a critical item for the mechanized warfare of the 1940s, continuing with the administration of life. These were paper tags with wire ties used to track patient data. The medic recorded the soldier's name, unit, type of injury, and the time of the morphine dose. These tags were wired directly to a buttonhole so they wouldn't be lost during a bumpy ambulance ride. This tag was the primary communication between the frontline doc and the surgeons at the hospital. Without this tag, a wounded soldier might receive a second, lethal dose of medication. It was the soldier's medical passport through the entire chain of evacuation. EMT shears, scissors. Next, we have the heavy-duty, blunt-tip shears used for exposing a wound in seconds. In combat, you don't unbutton a uniform. You cut it off to see the damage immediately. These scissors were designed with a rounded lower blade to slide under thick wool clothing without cutting the skin. They were strong enough to cut through heavy web belts, leather straps, and multiple layers of winter gear. Medics often kept these in a dedicated slot on their suspenders for instant access. Speed was everything, and these shears allowed a medic to begin treatment before the soldier could go into shock. Safety pins. Following the shears are the humble but essential safety pins, carried by the dozen in every kit. They were used for everything from securing triangular bandages to pinning empty morphine syrettes to a collar. They were also used to close gashes in clothing or to improvise a sling out of a soldier's own jacket sleeve. Medics often pinned them to their own lapels or the underside of their helmet brim for quick access. While they seem minor, they were the glue that held many field-expedient medical solutions together. No medic would ever go into an assault without a full supply of these pins. Next, we see the standard issue olive drab flashlight with its distinctive 90-degree angled head. This allowed the medic to clip the light to their suspenders, keeping both hands free to work on a wound. Most medics used a red filter lens to provide blackout lighting, which was less likely to be seen by snipers. The light was powered by 2 D-cell batteries and featured a simple slide switch for momentary use. Working in a dark foxhole or a ruined basement, this light was the medic's only way to see what they were sewing. It was an indispensable tool for the night fighting common across Europe, pocket knife or M3 trench knife. Continuing with the tools of the trade, most medics carried a standard multi-blade pocket knife or an M3 trench knife. Officially, these were utility tools used for cutting bandages, opening crates, or carving makeshift splints. However, as the war progressed, many medics carried the M3 knife for personal defense in hand-to-hand struggles. While they were not supposed to engage in offensive combat, the reality of the front line often demanded a survival weapon. The knife was usually worn on the belt or strapped to the medic's leg. It represents the blurred line between a healer and a soldier in a total war environment. M1911 pistol or M1 carbine. Finally, we address the unofficial self-defense weapons carried by many U.S. medics against official regulations. Under the Geneva Convention, medics were technically non-combatants, but many units allowed sidearms for the sole purpose of protecting patients. In the Pacific, this was mandatory, but in Europe, it was often a personal choice made after seeing colleagues targeted. The M1911.45 caliber pistol was the most common choice, as it didn't interfere with medical bags. Some medics even carried the lightweight M1 carbine if they expected to be operating far from friendly lines. While carrying a weapon voided their protected status, many decided a pistol was a better guarantee of safety than a Red Cross. The U.S. Army medic was a soldier who carried the weight of the war, not in ammunition, but in the tools of mercy. Every item in this kit was designed to buy one more minute of life for a wounded comrade. If you found this breakdown of the medic's gear fascinating, check out our deep dive into the ranks of the U.S. Army. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the history alive.